Well, hello everybody. This is Adam, and I have been requested to tell people about visual stacking. So rather than write it down in an email, I have decided that I would record it because it will be a lot easier. Now, especially for those who were at the recent Frontier event, we were set an exercise there. So what I will do is talk through how I remembered that exercise and why I would still be able to do the same thing because of the visual stack that I formed. Now, with a visual stack, it's important to put it together in your head in a way that you can remember it. And for me, the more bizarre the pictures, the easier it is to remember. So you may have remembered there were 15 items that we were asked to put into a story at the recent event. And here is my visual stack, and this is exactly what I remember. So the first thing I see in my head now is just Merlin, and he's standing up with his hands aloft. Now in Merlin's hand he has a trident. That's the second one. We've got Merlin, we've got the trident. So the first two are very easy for me as I see Merlin there with his hands in the air. Now in front of Merlin is a witch's cauldron. That's our third word. So I've got this visual stack of Merlin stood aloft with his hands in the air, and he's got his trident in front of his witch's cauldron. So there's the first bit. Now he can't enact this huge ceremony, the ceremony of Akbar, which I've thrown in gratuitously. So he needs a lucky leprechaun. There's our fourth word. So he needs a lucky leprechaun, and to get the lucky leprechaun, he needs to enlist the services of the kneeling knight in front of him. So there's our fifth word. So in my head, in the first few sentences, there's Merlin stood with his hands aloft, with the trident in his hand, with the witch's cauldron in front of him, with the lucky leprechaun missing and the kneeling knight in front of him. So he sets the kneeling knight the task of finding the lucky leprechaun. So off the kneeling knight goes, and he gets to a place in the forest where he finds the only source of inspiration that he knows, which is an owl. And there we have our sixth item. So in my head, I've got Merlin standing with his hands aloft, with the trident in his hand, with the witch's cauldron in front of him. He needs a lucky leprechaun, so he enlists the services of the kneeling knight, who then goes into the forest and finds an owl. So my visual stack has all of these in it. Now, when he gets to the owl, he asks him, "Can you help me? I need a hand with finding the lucky leprechaun." So the owl says, "Well, I won't be able to help you, but this genie bowl," and there lieth our seventh word, is put down to the kneeling knight, who rubs the bowl, and out comes the genie and offers him one wish. Now, of course, the knight, all he wants to do is get hold of the treasure. So he asks for a guide to take him there. And then, of course, the genie unleashes Bubbles the monkey, which, of course, is our eighth word. So we've got Merlin with his hands aloft, with the trident in hand, with the witch's cauldron in front of him, searching for a lucky leprechaun. He goes to the kneeling knight, who goes to the forest and sees the owl in the tree, who drops down the genie's bottle. The genie comes out and gives him Bubbles the monkey as his guide. So there's the picture. That's my visual stack so far. So Bubbles leads the kneeling knight, who obviously isn't kneeling at the moment, by the hand and takes him on a boat. They have to cross a river to get to the cave where they're going to find the lucky leprechaun. So they row across, and Bubbles the monkey suddenly notice that there's shooting starfish coming out of the river. Lots of them, starfish after starfish after starfish. Starfish, which will be our next word. So Bubbles the monkey wonders where these shooting starfish are coming from. So he looks under the river and he sees a giant squid. Our next word. The giant squid is throwing shooting starfish out of the river, and they're going across. So, Merlin, with his hands aloft, with the trident in hand, and the witch's cauldron in front of him, who needs the lucky leprechaun, he gets the kneeling knight to go into the forest and ask the owl, who gives him the genie's bottle. Then the genie comes out and gives him Bubbles the monkey, who leads the knight to the river, who's rowing across, who finds shooting starfish going across his head, and underneath the river is a giant squid who's doing all of the throwing about. So, there's the visual stack so far. Now, once they get across the river, there's a cave. But to get there, they need to go up the wooden ladder, which is the next word that I had to remember. So, the wooden ladder. They climb up the wooden ladder, and in the cave, they see the blue fairy. There's our next word. Who is holding aloft a sacrificial dagger. And there's another word. And he's just about to kill the lucky leprechaun when the knight throws his sword in, nails the blue fairy against the wall. The lucky leprechaun's there, saying, "I told you I was lucky." So we've got Merlin, hands aloft, trident in hand, witch's cauldron in front of him, needs the lucky leprechaun, asks the kneeling knight to go to the forest to see the owl in the tree, who drops the genie's bottle down, who he rubs, the genie comes out and gives him Bubbles the monkey, who takes him to the river, who sees the starfish underneath, sees the starfish coming across, looks underneath, sees the giant squid, gets across the river, climbs up the wooden ladder, goes into the cave, sees the blue fairy lifting up the sacrificial dagger, and then the knight nails the blue fairy, grabs the lucky leprechaun, takes him back to Merlin. Now Merlin's delighted that the festival of Akbar can now go ahead, and in his haste he lifts up a skeleton key, there is our 14th word, and gives it to him for the treasure chest which will contain the riches of the kingdom. So, visual stack in my head. Why I can still tell this story just as easily now is because it's hardwired with my visual stack of Merlin, hands aloft, trident, witch's cauldron, kneeling knight. He needs a leprechaun, so he goes into the forest. He sees the owl, who drops the genie's bottle. The genie gives him Bubbles the monkey. They go on the river, shooting starfish across. Giant squid throwing the starfish. Gets to the cave, can see the wooden ladder, climbing up. As he goes in the cave, I can see that blue fairy with his hands aloft and his sacrificial dagger in his hand, about to kill the leprechaun. The knight nails the blue fairy. He grabs the leprechaun. He goes back to Merlin, who presents the knight with the skeleton key for the treasure chest. 15 words, all hardwired via a visual stack. So I'm really hoping that helps to throw some light on what a visual stack is and how exactly it works.